My name is Amy Gleason. I am originally from Chicago. I was born and raised in Beverly on the south side. But for over 30 years, I've been living out west. And right now I live in Sacramento, California, where I have started my own business. There's no one more surprised about that than me. It's called ESL Sacramento. I teach English as a second language to adult professionals who come from all over the world. And I also teach university students and college students, and occasionally I work with high school students as well. So I started this in 2007, and it was only meant to be a pathway to this dream I had that someday maybe I would live in France. And I have had this social work career for over 30 years, a really rewarding, fulfilling social work career, working with foster care teens and teen parents and homeless youth, and I absolutely loved it. But I also had this other passion that was always haunting me a little bit, and it was this love of language and love of meeting people from other cultures. So in 2007, I thought someday I would like to live in France. But I probably can't be a social worker in France, even though I do speak French. So what will I do there? I probably could teach English. So in 2007, I actually went to France and got my TESOL certificate. And TESOL is very popular. It stands for Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. I did an intensive program and got the certificate that is required to teach English overseas, with this dream that someday I would live in France. Well, our instructor in that program, who was American, told us all, if you think you're going to come to beautiful France and teach English, and you come from 5 years from now and have not been teaching English, no one will hire you. You need to go back to the States and you need to teach English. And I thought, oh, okay, I wasn't really even planning to do that. So I started really slowly. I really didn't know what I was doing. I completely applied the motto, fake it till you make it. And I started teaching English as a second language. And I was shocked by how much fun it was, how much I loved it. It was a side job until 2011, when I got laid off from my very nice professional management job in social services. And then that became a saving grace for me. It became a way to not only supplement my income, but it all of a sudden was a way that I could support myself. So since 2007, I have been doing various other positions to supplement the ESL job. But ESL Sacramento is online. It has become fairly well known, and I'm busy teaching people who come from all walks of life, all cultures, sometimes from countries I've never even heard of. And this is an embarrassing reflection perhaps on American education, or maybe just on me personally. It seems that people I meet from other countries are much more aware of geography and political and social issues than most Americans I know. So when I had students contact me from Moldova, I had to look up where Moldova was. And I have, for example, just right now, I'm working with a woman who is a pharmacist from Japan. She's living and working in Sacramento as a pharmacist. I work with a man who is a doctor from Syria, although he got his medical degree in Ukraine. I work with a woman who owns a business, and she's from Vietnam. The list goes on. I work with a woman who is a professional singer from Puerto Rico. I meet these people who come from completely different cultures, not only from me, but from each other. And I learn so much about their culture, about their customs. They are here, they're functioning, employed people. So there are a lot of stereotypes about immigrants that would be overcome if they met my students. I always tell my students, and I do have a master's degree in education, I tell them, I'm pretty sure you're a lot smarter than I am, And my goal to help you is to make sure when you communicate, people don't treat you like you're stupid because you have an accent, because that's what happens a lot of times. These are folks who are super smart people, and they're well educated, and they're good people, and they're hardworking, but they cannot get all of their thoughts and expressions out as clearly as a native speaker, and that's my job. So I work a lot with not only helping them to speak better and properly, but to feel more confident. I mean, we role play, we do we do live situations. So it's just been a super rewarding experience. I never realized, after having such a rewarding career in social services, that I could do something really different and feel just as rewarded. So that's something that's been a lesson for me. At the age of 53, I made a change midstream, and it's really fantastic. I list on my website all of the countries that I've worked with, because it's surprising even to me. I have really worked with people from all corners. I mean, from the Middle East to European folks, many of the Asian countries. Like I said, sometimes countries I literally have not even heard of, and I have to look them up on a map. Certain cultures have much stronger accents, for example. Sure. So accent reduction, even though that's not my specialty, we spend a lot of time with the actual mechanics of how to speak. And I have a friend who is a speech pathologist, and I actually will phone a friend. I have asked her for help. Please help me explain how to use the L, how to make the L sound, because that's not what I do. I do my best. This is why it's important to have my lessons in my home, because when you're in a cafe and you're saying water, 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 and everyone's looking at you and the student's very embarrassed, it's much better to do this in the privacy of my home where everyone feels comfortable. There's a lot of work with pronunciation. So certain cultures do have more difficulty with pronunciation, and I have complete empathy for that. I mean, first of all, being a French speaker, learning another language, which I've been learning all my life, I tell all my students, when I studied in France in college, I lived with a French family, and every morning I'd wake up and I'd look out the bedroom window, the bedroom door, and I'd look down the hall, and I'd think to myself, how can I get to the shower, grab some bread and cheese in the kitchen, get out the door, and not say hello to anybody? Okay, I know that feeling. I went to French university when I wasn't fluent in English or in French, and I know that feeling. I know how humiliating it is to not know how to say, do you have a hairdryer? You feel like a child when you learn a new language. You have to really be able to have humility. And so I have empathy for that situation. The other thing I have empathy for, though, with the students who have difficulty, is that many languages don't make the sounds that we make. Okay? And I know that, again, because in French there are some sounds that we don't make, like their R. We don't make that R in English. And so for certain Asian and Indian cultures or languages, for example, it is almost impossible for them. It makes it very difficult for them to learn how to pronounce words, because the sounds are they're sounds that they've never made in their life. So yeah, the thing I love the most is really meeting the people that I work with. They're so cool. I mean, for lack of a better word, I really develop relationships with the people that I work with. It's in a one-on-one setting. It's much more personal.
Okay.
When I get a pharmacist or a doctor or a dentist or an engineer or an IT person, these are not my fields. I'm a social worker. I research and I find vocabulary, I find phrases, I find role plays. So now I'm the customer, she's the pharmacist. I'm the patient, he's the doctor. I research individual lessons that are tailored to each person. So this is the advantage of the individual lessons. But no, I didn't start that way. I did not really know what I was doing when I started. I mean, taking a course in teaching English, I was in my TESOL certificate course with Irish people and Americans in France. I chose France just because then I could be speaking French when I wasn't taking my English lessons, my English course. And teachers know this. Just because you know how to do doesn't mean you know how to teach. We would look at each other and say, did we learn this when we were in school? Teaching English isn't as easy as you might think, which is something I will share. Irritates me when I hear people who've had no training are teaching English. That bothers me because there is actually a methodology to teaching English. There are skills you have to have. There are things you have to learn about teaching English. And I'm certainly not an expert. I mean, I have a TESOL certificate. That's not the same as someone who has been teaching English for many years. But teaching English to foreign people also requires a different set of skills. It's different than teaching English to Americans. So, anyway, I do want to share the only real difficult aspect of teaching English is more of from the business side, and that is that the student attendance can be inconsistent, right? I mean, my student from Syria just said he's going to Lebanon to visit his sister for the month, right? My student from Vietnam is going to go see her family in Vietnam. My student from India just moved to Topeka, Kansas. Poor thing. I told him that's going to be quite a transition from Sacramento to Topeka for an Indian man. But, they're more transient. It's a transient population. So in terms of the business aspect, it's not always as consistent. So my goal right now really is to get into business English and to get into, for example, one time I worked in a solar company. And I worked with an engineer, and the company themselves hired me to teach. I'm working on trying to transition into that just to give myself more stability. But working out of my home and making my own schedule has its benefits as well.
Absolutely. Do you videotape any of your students?
No, that's very interesting. I do not. I've done this in the past when I taught life skills to foster care teens, and we would do job interviewing, and I would videotape their mock interviews. No, but what I do is, first of all, I save their voicemails. Anytime they call me, I save their voicemail and we listen to it when they come for their lesson. And we do audio. I have them record themselves, but I don't actually videotape in the lessons now.
So do you create like a folder for each student? Mm-hmm. And keep all that?
Yeah. So the process starts with my initial meeting with them is just 1 hour, and most lessons are 90 minutes to 2 hours each. And it depends. Some students come once a week, some come twice a week, some come 3 times a week. It varies. Some come 5 days a week. It's just what their needs are and their budget and their time. But their initial meeting is really for me to find out what their needs are, just a needs assessment. I'm listening while we're talking for the first hour. I'm trying to start the assessment of what their level is, their learning level, and then we go from there. But
what does it take for someone to be successful in this type of business, would you say?
So, there's the formal training that people get. You have to have, my master's degree is in education, and it was a school counseling curriculum, so that really helped me quite a bit to kind of learn the foundations of education. And then there really is quite a bit of counseling that goes into working with international students, by the way, because they're really going through a lot. There's a whole psycho-emotional aspect to working with these students one-on-one, because they're going through separation and anxiety and fear.
What's the average length of time they've been in the States? Is there such a thing? I mean,
it can really vary. I work with some folks who are here just brand new, 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I work with some people who have been here for 10 years.
Okay.
And they're still trying to improve, their accent or grammar or whatever. Okay, so first of all, the training is really important, but that is not the only part of the story. I mean, not everyone can connect with people who are from other cultures. I mean, you have to be really open-minded. I sit and listen to ideas and beliefs from some of my students that I totally don't agree with, you know. And it's difficult for me to, when we're engaging in this conversation, we're having super interesting conversations, but I have to stay neutral politically, religiously, and so that is a skill that is required for teaching people from other cultures. It is not my job, and this is why social work is so helpful, because it's the same ideology in social work. It is not my job to impose my values onto my students. So when I hear women from the Middle East tell me what the customs still are in their marriage, I am a supportive ear, I am a counselor, I am listening, I am not giving advice, and that takes a skill. Not everyone can do that.
What advice would you give to somebody who's considering getting into this field?
Well, if someone were to ask me, you know, like they often do with social work, I always encourage people to go into the social work field. You know, the ESL field is super saturated. There are a bajillion people now. This is really it's a new day. The world has really opened up. Barriers have opened up since I was younger, since the 80s, even since the 90s. The world we really are one people. The world is really global now. So it's a competitive field because there are lots of people who are wanting to kind of jump on the bandwagon of teaching ESL. So, you know, I think what I would say is just be really focused on why you're doing it. What is your ultimate goal? And who are the people that you're interested in? What is the population you're most interested in? Some people like to teach young children. Some people like to teach adolescents. I found myself really enjoying working with adults after spending an entire career working with adolescents. So just really being clear on why you're doing it and understanding that it's not just teaching English. And I think maybe the most important message that I would want to convey is that just because you speak English does not mean you know how to teach it. It's a little more complicated than that.
What's your definition of happiness?
Oh, my Lord. That's a complex question. Okay, my definition of happiness. It's really it's simplicity. It's just really feeling comfortable with who I am and what I'm doing today, and knowing that being comfortable in my own skin might not make everybody else happy, and just trying to figure out what that is. It's also, I think, a sense of really giving to the community. I mean, there's a whole other aspect of this and some other parts of my life, which are the reward we get from helping other people who need a leg up or who need just a boost. So for me, that's happy. The reward of doing service to others is, I'm forgetting the word I'm looking for, exponential. So above all, in the end of all of this, I've learned so many things from my students, but I think what I've learned, or what has been confirmed for me, is that regardless of where anyone comes from, or even the beliefs or the customs that they had growing up, barring violence, barring people who want to be violent or hurt others, we are truly one people. We all have the same fears, the same joys, the same worries. We all love our families the same way. We all want to feel fulfilled in the same way. It doesn't matter where we come from. And I think if everyone could think about that, it could really change things for our whole world.